Brodes Media.
Vintage James Harden. We got vintage James Harden. That fourth quarter was an explosion. 31 points on the night. He was absolutely delivering. Maybe I can speak correctly. Delivering fantastic basketball when the Sixers really needed it. That was magnificent. That was beautiful. We have a series tied going to Miami. And oh, by the way, for the 8,000th time, Joel Embiid is that much of a difference maker for the idiots out there who tried telling all of us that we were overreacting to the lack of Joel Embiid in Game 1 and Game 2. Bam is a bum. Bam is not good when Joel Embiid is out there. Quite frankly, he's afraid when Joel Embiid is out there. When Tobias is playing on him, he'll have fun, okay? When they play the zone, he'll be able to cut a little bit better. But if you don't see the difference, Joel Embiid was insane defensively. When I saw him play Oladipo 101 out by the perimeter, I felt something in my pants. When I watched him one-on-one play against Hero, he did it multiple times on Oladipo. I mean, he blocked Marcus Morris. Not that he had any business playing basketball because he's been out for quite some time, unfortunately, for the horrific injury that happened due to Jokic and what he did when he lost his cool. But Joel Embiid defensively is a monster. We could break down how the Sixers need to do a better job at getting Joel Embiid the ball with certain spots on the floor. And you watch the Miami Heat front him, which caused a little bit of some issues with getting the ball to him and some passings, which led to some turnovers. And then Miami did take advantage on the fast break and get up and down the court, which at times hurt you. And, of course, Jimmy Butler was a dog. He had 40-plus. He was outrageous. The rest of the team sucked. The rest of the Miami Heat actually sucked today. They weren't making their shots. It's kind of weird how this works, huh? When the Sixers were on the road in Game 1 and 2, they couldn't buy a bucket. Miami's on the road. They can't buy a bucket. Now, the difference is the big man. That's the difference for the Sixers. Think about the intensity defensively on how you have to target in on Joel Embiid compared to if it's DeAndre Jordan and Paul Reed. It's night and day. Now, I thought a key part to this game was that fourth quarter. You had Embiid on the bench. You had Paul Reed in the game. Bam comes back. You talk about his foul problems. And yeah, Scott Foster does what Scott Foster does. He's going to make it living hell for both teams. We're going to bitch and complain because it's a nightmare every time he has the whistle in his damn mouth. That's just the nature of the beast. You had bad calls where Danny Green was playing excellent defense. He has his hands up and down, his arms up and down. They're going to call a foul. After Joel Embiid accidentally hit Jimmy Butler in the face, which should have been called a flagrant, and it was, Tobias Harris gets chopped into the throat. Tobias Harris goes down. They don't even review it. That is a shot in the face in today's era of basketball. That's a flagrant. This is how it goes. So we can go back and forth on the miserable lack of calls and then the miserable calls on both sides. At the end of the day, when the Sixers needed it most, James Harden stepped up, and they had better team play surrounding James Harden. But Embiid went off in the first quarter, scoring 15 points on 6 shots. That was outrageous, finding areas in the soft spots and delivering a mid-range. His threes definitely looked off. There's no denying it. And luckily, I utilized my Betway app, and I landed Joel Embiid. The over-under on threes was set at a half. I took the over. The 1 3 he cashed in was banked off the top of the backboard and ends up going in. I mean, sometimes you see a shot that's kissed off the backboard and it's in the square. This thing was outrageously off and it goes in. But you could tell pregame that he looked more dialed in. He looked more comfortable, and I figured that would happen because of him getting some run underneath of himself and getting some experience on what it's going to be like with the thumb in Game 3. And with the mask in Game 3, it looked like a different locked-in Joel from the start of this. It did it for James Harden. Let's be realistic. Started off missing a bunch of shots. He picks up a couple fouls. He goes to the bench. And I told myself, you can't be okay if you're getting a James Harden night where we've seen the inconsistent James Harden. He was unbelievable with the team high in plus-minus in Game 3, where he distributed the ball, he scored by attacking, and he grabbed some rebounds as well. You were ecstatic about what he did for your team when it comes to setting up the offense and getting everybody in their proper spaces and then getting good looks for the team. But we've seen plenty of drives, turnovers, loses the ball, gets sloppy with it. First couple possessions for him, when you were really targeting in on what James Harden and the experience was going to look like from the early stages, there were some head scratchers. And just knowing that it's been up and down, I'm thinking, no, not tonight, James. Please, not tonight. Second quarter comes around, electric. Fourth quarter comes around, even more electric. I don't know how that Dodge guy is sleeping on the court side underneath the basket. Someone had to check up on him, right? Come on now. That place was absolutely rocking, and we have a man sleeping underneath the basket? That's a problem. I don't even know how that's physically impossible, but I'm stoked. I'm pumped up. That was the most intense I've seen James Harden when it comes to that emotion and it comes to that fire and him screaming at the top of his lungs after drilling the threes. Outrageous 31.6 threes made, 16 points in the fourth quarter. I have the chills just thinking about it, and I don't want it to be this way. I prefer it to be a blowout, and I want the Sixers to win with ease where I don't have to sweat at all whatsoever. But I will admit, it was nice to just experience a super fun, entertaining game. I want the Sixers to win. And because they did, it's a lot easier for me to make this statement, right? If this is coming after a Sixers loss and I'm crushed and now it's 3-1 heading back to Miami, I'm not going to sit here and express my feelings on how I just enjoyed being a Sixers fan in a high-leverage moment, in a high-leverage situation, and embracing the fun of postseason ball. When you win, it's a little bit easier to do so, and that was absolutely the case for me, where I'm giving it my all, screaming. I even got the text from the fiance. Been a while since you were that hectic. Well, babe, 2-2. 2-2. They're feeling themselves, which is good. But you got to recognize it's going to be a different environment. It's going to be hostile. But you never got to really give it a whirl on the road with Joel in this series. And when you think of how the Miami Heat have to play defensively, it's a totally different style. It's a totally different level of effort. It's a different focus, which opens up the door for everyone else. Maxey gives you 18. Got to the free throw line 6 times. Drilled them all. Had a couple threes. Tobias Harris, it wasn't anything overwhelming, but I thought that there were some timely shots, whether it was a 3 or Tyrese Maxey's filthy pass for the alley-oop, where it was unbelievable to hear the eruption. Danny Green, the 4-point play in the first half. It sucks he missed the free throw, but you knew with the way Danny's been playing that he'd have a couple of threes. You even had the luxury of not only a Matisse Thybulle from deep, you had the luxury of Niang make a couple shots, double-digit points to be exact. So up and down, you talk about double figures, you talk about getting important pieces, on top of one of your stars having their night. See, Jimmy Butler didn't have any help. Don't look at Bam. Don't fool yourself. Bam's stat line is very fraudulent tonight. Don't look at Bam and say, well, 20 plus for him. No. Bam sucked. Bam was irrelevant to me. He took advantage of Tobias. He took advantage of not Joel Embiid. Stop it with that nonsense. Fraudulent. Jimmy Butler had zero help all around. Tyler Hero wasn't the Tyler Hero that was cashing in and red hot, which makes sense because there's no way every single night will be that explosive for him. So he cooled off a bit. So the Sixers, if you look at the Harden and the Jimmy Butler, they wash each other out. And what do you have from there? You got Embiid with 24, hot first, slowed down a bit afterwards, but there's a lot of reasons why that was. I thought Miami did a good job at somewhat daring the Sixers at times. Go ahead, try and make that pass. Sometimes I look at the Sixers and say, you need to be sharper there, and you have to deliver him the ball. There's matchups here where please. But what cracks me up is when Gabe Vincent is complaining about a foul call. Dude, you have Joel Embiid on you. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. What are you bitching about? He's a foot taller than you. Shut up. This is what happens when you get a mismatch. Shut up. Same with Kyle Lowry. And I can't believe the broadcast talking about, oh, this guy is Philadelphia. Shut up. I can't stand Kyle Lowry. And here he is playing with the injury. Well, you could tell. He left the game, he came back, and he probably re-injured himself when he flopped, like the biggest flop I've ever seen. And James Harden cashes in a three right in his face when that's the case. He had a couple seconds to size it up. I would have stared right down at him, maybe even mouthed a couple words to him. That's how much of a joke Kyle Lowry was. So, I mean, I'm just all around super excited on how they turned the page and they flipped the script. And realistically, the Miami Heat were gifted 2 wins to start this series off. And I was nervous that they were unfortunately dug in such a hole that it's hard. Miami could win a game. It's not like the Heat can't beat the Sixers with Joel one game. And if that so happened to be the case, after being gifted a 2-0 series lead, it's that much more difficult and realistically almost impossible to climb yourself out of a 3-1 when you see you're going to Miami. So the fact that they held strong and the confidence is there, the swagger's there, the attitude is there, and your entire team feels it. They know it. And that is really just from Embiid being back on the floor. His presence, it means the world. I referenced it throughout this series in the beginning stages. It just seems while the Sixers are battling and they're working hard, deep down internally, if you ask them on a lie detector test, how do you feel right now? Be honest with me. What is your tone like inside when you think about this matchup? You're going to lie if you say, yeah, we're going to be able to beat this team. No, you're not. No, you're not. As much as I bash Miami, and I don't think that they're a scary juggernaut by any means with the number 1 seed, if you don't have your best player in MVP, they're going to beat you. Because the alternative, they got, it seems, 57 different centers, and nobody can do it. Can they do it with minimum minutes? Yes. With Embiid out? Absolutely not. When he's there, it's go mode. It's we're going to do this mode. And Embiid is different this year. His maturity and approach as a professional is like no other. And it seems we're creating the storyline as we watch him progress. The big shot over Toronto. Game 3, overtime. That was iconic. We will look back at that shot as one of the best in his career. There may be some that top it as we watch more games play out, but that is going to be labeled one where in 20 years, remember what happened in Toronto? And he responded from the heartbreak in 2019 because in 2022, on the road in overtime, game 3 to go up 3-0, bang. Now he's battling the injuries in the fractured bone, in the orbital bone, and the thumb. And concussed. And there seems to be even more of a drive and more of a determination with those circumstances in play to get this done. And everybody feeds off that. Everybody believes in it. So game 5 is going to be unbelievable. It's going to be intense as hell. And if they squeeze one out there, coming back on your home floor, whoa. Now, I'm not getting ahead of myself. I'm not thinking of game 6. I'm not thinking of if it's possible for a game 7. My eyes and my focus is game 5.